Station Commander Vale had gills behind her ears that opened and closed when she was thinking hard. Right now they were working overtime. She floated in her water-filled command chair and studied the report Dr. Holt had sent her. 3 pages of technical details that all added up to one simple fact. The human's DNA made no sense. "Bring her to interrogation room 5, Vale ordered. Her voice bubbled slightly when she spoke like someone talking underwater. "And bring Dr. Holt, I want answers." The interrogation room was small and gray with a metal table and 3 chairs. Lila sat on one side while Commander Vale and Dr. Holt sat on the other. Vale wore a special suit that kept her skin wet, and water dripped slowly onto the floor around her chair. "State your name and planet of origin," Vale began. "Lila Cross. Born on Earth. North American continent, city called Denver. Purpose of travel? Research position at the Centauri Agricultural Station. I study plant genetics." Vale looked at Dr. Holt. "Show her the scan results." Dr. Holt placed a data pad on the table. The screen showed a complex diagram that looked like a twisted ladder made of different colored dots. "This is your DNA structure," he explained. "Do you see anything unusual?" Lila studied the diagram. It looked like every other DNA chart she had seen in her biology classes. Double helix, base pairs, gene sequences. Nothing strange. "Looks normal to me. Look closer here." Dr. Holt pointed to a section of the diagram. "These sequences do not exist in any known human genetic database. And here," he pointed to another section. "These markers match species that died out millions of years ago. And this section appears to contain genetic information that has never been seen in any living creature." Lila frowned at the screen. The sections Dr. Holt was pointing to did look different from the rest. More complex, more colorful, like someone had painted extra details onto a simple picture. "I don't understand," she said. "Are you saying I'm not human?" "You are definitely human," Dr. Holt replied. "That is what makes this so impossible. Your basic genetic structure is completely normal for your species, but you also carry genetic information that should not exist." Commander Vale leaned forward in her chair. Water sloshed around her feet. "We ran your DNA through every scanner on this station. 6 different machines. All gave the same result. Either you are carrying artificial genetic modifications, or you are something that our science cannot explain." "Have you contacted Earth authorities?" Lila asked. "Yes, they confirmed your identity and birth records. They also said your genetic profile was completely normal when you left Earth 3 months ago." Lila thought about this. "So either your machines are broken or my DNA changed while I was traveling through space." "The machines are not broken," Dr. Holt said firmly. "I tested them on 50 other subjects this morning. All worked perfectly. Then maybe space travel affects human DNA in ways you don't understand." Vale and Dr. Holt looked at each other. Vale's gills fluttered faster. Dr. Holt run the comparison analysis. Dr. Holt touched the datapad screen. A new diagram appeared showing 2 DNA structures side by side. "This is a scan of your DNA from Earth medical records 3 months ago. This is your DNA today. They are identical." Lila stared at the 2 diagrams. They looked exactly the same, including all the impossible parts that Dr. Holt had pointed out. "Wait, you're saying the weird stuff was already there 3 months ago?" "Correct, but Earth scanners did not detect it. They read your DNA as completely normal human. How is that possible?" Dr. Holt's large black eyes seemed to glow with excitement. "There are 2 possibilities. First, Earth's medical technology is much less advanced than ours and they simply missed the anomalies. Second, your DNA has some kind of built-in camouflage that only works on certain types of scanners." Commander Vale made a sound like water going down a drain. In her species, this meant she was very concerned. "Doctor, what you are suggesting sounds like deliberate genetic engineering of an extremely advanced type." "Yes, but the engineering would have had to happen before birth. Possibly before conception. The modifications are integrated into every cell in her body." Lila felt a strange chill run down her spine. "Are you saying someone designed me?" "I am saying your DNA contains information that should not exist in nature. How it got there, I do not know." Vale touched a button on her chair and spoke to someone outside the room. "Security, run a full background check on Subject Cross. Contact Earth authorities again. I want complete medical records, family history, and birth documentation." She turned back to Lila. "Where were your parents born?" "My mother was from Earth, my father too. Grandparents? All from Earth as far as I know. My family has been on Earth for generations. Dr. Holt was working on his datapad again. Commander, I am running her DNA against the Galactic Genetic Database. This will take several hours, but it should tell us if any of these unknown sequences match anything in our records. Do it. And Doctor, I want this information classified until we understand what we are dealing with. Vale stood up from her water chair. Fluid dripped from her suit as she moved. Miss Cross, you will be moved to guest quarters while we investigate. You are not under arrest, but you cannot leave the station until we have answers. Lila nodded. She was starting to feel less amused and more worried. Can I ask you something? Yes. In all your years of scanning different species, have you ever seen anything like this before? Vale and Dr. Holt exchanged another look. This time Dr. Holt answered, No, but there are legends. What kind of legends? Stories about the precursors. The ancient race that left technology scattered across the galaxy, millions of years ago. Some say they did not just leave behind machines. Some say they left behind other things as well. Lila felt that strange chill again, stronger this time. What kind of other things? Seeds, Dr. Holt said quietly. Genetic seeds planted in younger species, waiting for the right time to grow. Commander Vale's gills snapped shut. That is enough speculation, Doctor. We deal in facts, not fairy tales. But as the guards escorted Lila to her new quarters, she could not stop thinking about what Dr. Holt had said. Seeds, waiting to grow. And for the first time since this whole strange day began, her soft laughter had stopped completely. Station Commander Vale had gills behind her ears that opened and closed when she was thinking hard. Right now they were working overtime. She floated in her water-filled command chair and studied the report Dr. Holt had sent her. 3 pages of technical details that all added up to one simple fact. The human's DNA made no sense. Bring her to interrogation room 5, Vale ordered. Her voice bubbled slightly when she spoke, like someone talking underwater. And bring Dr. Holt. I want answers. The interrogation room was small and gray with a metal table and 3 chairs. Lila sat on one side while Commander Vale and Dr. Holt sat on the other. Vale wore a special suit that kept her skin wet, and water dripped slowly onto the floor around her chair. State your name and planet of origin, Vale began. Lila Cross. Born on Earth, North American continent, city called Denver. Purpose of travel? Research position at the Centauri Agricultural Station. I study plant genetics. Vale looked at Dr. Holt. Show her the scan results. Dr. Holt placed a datapad on the table. The screen showed a complex diagram that looked like a twisted ladder made of different colored dots. This is your DNA structure, he explained. Do you see anything unusual? Lila studied the diagram. It looked like every other DNA chart she had seen in her biology classes. Double helix, base pairs, gene sequences. Nothing strange. Looks normal to me. Look closer, here. Dr. Holt pointed to a section of the diagram. These sequences do not exist in any known human genetic database. And here, he pointed to another section. These markers match species that died out millions of years ago. And this section appears to contain genetic information that has never been seen in any living creature. Lila frowned at the screen. The sections Dr. Holt was pointing to did look different from the rest. More complex, more colorful, like someone had painted extra details onto a simple picture. I don't understand, she said. Are you saying I'm not human? You are definitely human, Dr. Holt replied. That is what makes this so impossible. Your basic genetic structure is completely normal for your species, but you also carry genetic information that should not exist. Commander Vale leaned forward in her chair. Water sloshed around her feet. We ran your DNA through every scanner on the station. 6 different machines. All gave the same result. Either you are carrying artificial genetic modifications, or you are something that our science cannot explain. Have you contacted Earth authorities? Lila asked. Yes, they confirmed your identity and birth records. They also said your genetic profile was completely normal when you left Earth 3 months ago. Lila thought about this. So either your machines are broken or my DNA changed while I was traveling through space. The machines are not broken, Dr. Holt said firmly. I tested them on 50 other subjects this morning. All worked perfectly. Then maybe space travel affects human DNA in ways you don't understand. Vale and Dr. Holt looked at each other. Vale's gills fluttered faster. Dr. Holt, run the comparison analysis. Dr. Holt touched the datapad screen. A new diagram appeared showing two DNA structures side by side. This is a scan of your DNA from Earth medical records 3 months ago. This is your DNA today. They are identical. Lila stared at the two diagrams. They looked exactly the same, including all the impossible parts that Dr. Holt had pointed out. Wait, you're saying the weird stuff was already there 3 months ago? Correct. But Earth scanners did not detect it. They read your DNA as completely normal human. How is that possible? Dr. Holt's large black eyes seemed to glow with excitement. There are two possibilities. First, Earth's medical technology is much less advanced than ours and they simply missed the anomalies. Second, your DNA has some kind of built-in camouflage that only works on certain types of scanners. Commander Vale made a sound like water going down a drain. In her species, this meant she was very concerned. Doctor, what you are suggesting sounds like deliberate genetic engineering of an extremely advanced type. Yes, but the engineering would have had to happen before birth. Possibly before conception. The modifications are integrated into every cell in her body. Lila felt a strange chill run down her spine. Are you saying someone designed me? I am saying your DNA contains information that should not exist in nature. How it got there, I do not know. Vale touched a button on her chair and spoke to someone outside the room. Security, run a full background check on Subject Cross. Contact Earth authorities again. I want complete medical records, family history, and birth documentation. She turned back to Lila. Where were your parents born? My mother was from Earth, my father too. Grandparents? All from Earth as far as I know. My family has been on Earth for generations. Dr. Holt was working on his datapad again. Commander, I am running her DNA against the Galactic Genetic Database. This will take several hours, but it should tell us if any of these unknown sequences match anything in our records. Do it. And Doctor, I want this information classified until we understand what we are dealing with. Vale stood up from her water chair. Fluid dripped from her suit as she moved. Miss Cross, you will be moved to guest quarters while we investigate. You are not under arrest, but you cannot leave the station until we have answers. Lila nodded. She was starting to feel less amused and more worried. Can I ask you something? Yes. In all your years of scanning different species, have you ever seen anything like this before? Vale and Dr. Holt exchanged another look. This time, Dr. Holt answered, No, but there are legends. What kind of legends? Stories about the precursors. The ancient race that left technology scattered across the galaxy millions of years ago. Some say they did not just leave behind machines. Some say they left behind other things as well. Lila felt that strange chill again, stronger this time. What kind of other things? Seeds, Dr. Holt said quietly. Genetic seeds planted in younger species. Waiting for the right time to grow. Commander Vale's gills snapped shut. That is enough speculation, Doctor. We deal in facts, not fairy tales. But as the guards escorted Lila to her new quarters, she could not stop thinking about what Dr. Holt had said. Seeds, waiting to grow, and for the first time since this whole strange day began, her soft laughter had stopped completely. Dr. Holt had not slept in 36 hours. His lab was covered with data screens showing DNA sequences, genetic maps, and historical records. Empty coffee cups from 6 different species floated around his workspace like strange decorations. His assistant, a young researcher named Dr. Kim from the insect-like species called Mantari, clicked her mandibles nervously as she worked. Doctor, the comparison is complete, Dr. Kim announced. Her voice sounded like wind chimes made of metal. You need to see this immediately. Dr. Holt floated over to her workstation. The main screen showed a complex genetic map with thousands of colored markers. Most were blue, representing normal human DNA. But scattered throughout were dozens of red markers that pulsed like tiny warning lights. What am I looking at? Dr. Holt asked. Cross-reference matches from the Galactic Genetic Database. The red markers show where Lila Cross's DNA matches samples from archaeological sites across the galaxy. Dr. Holt's eyes widened. How many matches? 47 exact matches. All from sites believed to be precursor origin. Doctor, some of these samples are over 3 million years old. Dr. Holt stared at the screen in silence. He had spent his entire career studying genetics, and nothing in his education had prepared him for this. Show me the individual matches. Dr. Kim touched the screen. The display changed to show a detailed comparison between Lila's DNA and an archaeological sample. This first match comes from a dig site on Kepler-7. The sample was found in what appears to be a precursor research facility. aged 2.8 million years. The genetic sequences were identical down to the last base pair. Next match, Dr. Holt whispered. Vega Mining Station, Level 4 excavation. Sample age 3.2 million years. Perfect match. They went through 17 more samples. Each one was millions of years old. Each one matched Lila's DNA exactly. Dr. Holt felt like he was watching his understanding of the universe collapse and rebuild itself. Dr. Kim, contact the archaeology department at Rigel University. I want every precursor genetic sample they have in their database. Already done, Doctor. The results arrived an hour ago. Dr. Kim's mandibles clicked faster. 83 additional matches. But Doctor, there is something else. Something more important. She brought up a new display showing human DNA from Earth's medical databases. I ran comparisons against random human genetic samples from Earth. The results are very strange. Strange how? Every human carries fragments of these precursor sequences. Every single one. But the fragments are broken up and scattered through what Earth scientists call junk DNA. Dr. Holt felt his heart start beating faster. Are you saying all humans carry precursor genetic material? Yes, but in most humans the sequences are dormant, incomplete, non-functional. Like pieces of a puzzle that have been mixed up with thousands of other puzzle pieces. But in Lila Cross? In Lila Cross, the pieces have somehow assembled themselves into complete, functional sequences. Her DNA is not just human. It is human plus active precursor genetic information. Dr. Holt sat down heavily in his chair. The implications were staggering. Contact Commander Vale immediately. She needs to see this. 20 minutes later, Commander Vale stood in Dr. Holt's lab with water dripping from her environmental suit. Her gills were opening and closing so fast they looked like they were vibrating. Explain this to me in simple terms, she ordered. Dr. Holt pointed to the main display. Humans are not just another species that evolved naturally. They appear to be the result of precursor genetic engineering on a massive scale. Every human alive carries precursor DNA fragments in their genetic code. And Lila Cross? Lila Cross is what humans were designed to become. Somehow, her precursor genetic sequences have activated. Vale made her worried drain sound again. You are telling me that an ancient alien race designed the human species millions of years before humans existed? That is what the evidence suggests. The precursors did not just visit Earth. They planted genetic seeds that would develop over millions of years of evolution. But why? What would be the purpose? Dr. Holt looked at Dr. Kim, who clicked her mandibles in what might have been uncertainty. We do not know yet. But doctor, there is more. He brought up a new display showing brain scans and neural activity patterns. I convinced Miss Cross to submit to some additional tests. Her brain activity is unlike anything I have ever seen in any species. The brain scan showed areas lighting up in complex patterns that looked more like computer circuits than biological neural networks. She can process information at incredible speeds. Her pattern recognition abilities are far beyond normal human ranges. And most interesting of all, she seems to have an intuitive understanding of technology she has never seen before. Commander Vale stared at the brain scan. What kind of technology? I showed her some basic precursor artifacts from our archaeology collection. Items that our best scientists have been studying for decades without understanding their function. She identified their purpose within minutes. That is impossible. I thought so too, but she was correct every time. She even activated a device that we thought was completely dead. Vale's gills stopped moving entirely. In her species, this was a sign of extreme shock. Doctor, are you suggesting that Lila Cross can interface with precursor technology? I believe that is exactly what she was designed to do. The lab fell silent except for the quiet hum of computers and the dripping of water from Vale's suit. Finally, Vale spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. Doctor, how many other humans like Lila Cross might exist? Dr. Holt had been dreading this question. Based on genetic probability models, there should be others. The activation of precursor sequences appears to be triggered by some kind of environmental factor. If that factor is present in other locations, how many others? Potentially thousands. Scattered across human space. Vale reached for her communication device. I need to contact Galactic Command immediately. This information changes everything. But before she could make the call, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The computer announced in multiple languages, priority alert, unknown vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. Dr. Holt looked at the displays showing the outer sensor array. 6 ships were approaching the station. Ships of a design he had never seen before. Ships that seemed to be scanning for something specific. "Commander," Dr. Kim said quietly. "I think word about Miss Cross has already spread." Vale's gills began working overtime again. "Doctor, how long would it take to complete your analysis of her genetic structure?" "Several more days at minimum. You have 6 hours. After that, I think our investigation is going to become much more complicated." As if summoned by their conversation, security announced that Lila Cross was requesting to speak with Dr. Holt. She had something important to tell him about the dreams she had been having. Dreams about ancient worlds and sleeping machines and a darkness coming from between the stars. Dreams that felt more like memories every time she woke up. Lila woke up knowing things she had never learned. The feeling was like remembering a forgotten language that suddenly made perfect sense. She sat up in her guest quarters and looked around the room with completely different eyes. The walls were not just metal panels. They were constructed using molecular bonding techniques that were incredibly advanced but seemed perfectly obvious to her now. The door chimed softly. Dr. Holt entered with a concerned expression on his gray face. "Miss Cross, you requested to see me urgently." "Something is happening to me," Lila said simply. "I know things I should not know. I remember places I have never been." Dr. Holt sat down across from her. "Can you be more specific?" Lila closed her eyes and concentrated. Images flowed through her mind like scenes from a movie. There was a planet with purple skies and silver trees. The people there had no bodies, just energy that moved through crystal structures. They built machines that could think and feel and dream. The precursors? They called themselves the architects. They were not originally from this galaxy. They came here running from something terrible, something that devours entire star systems. Dr. Holt leaned forward. What were they running from? The Void Swarm. Entities from dark space that consume matter and energy to fuel their endless expansion. The architects tried to fight them, but the swarm was too powerful, so they did something else instead. Lila opened her eyes. They seemed brighter than before, as if there was light coming from inside her skull. They built a barrier, a wall made of folded space and quantum energy that would hide this galaxy from the swarm. But maintaining the barrier required incredible amounts of power and constant monitoring. They knew they could not do it forever. So they created a backup plan. Dr. Holt said quietly. They seeded younger species with genetic keys, instructions that would activate when the barrier started to fail. "We are those keys, Dr. Holt. Humans are living tools designed to maintain ancient defenses." Dr. Holt stared at her for a long moment. "How do you know all this?" "Because the knowledge is written in my DNA. And right now, that knowledge is waking up." Before Dr. Holt could respond, Commander Vale's voice echoed through the station's communication system. "All personnel, report to emergency stations. We have multiple vessels requesting immediate docking. This is not a drill." Through the small window in her quarters, Lila could see ships arriving from different directions. Some were sleek and beautiful. Others looked like floating cities. A few resembled weapon platforms more than exploration vessels. "Word has spread," Dr. Holt said grimly. "They are scared," Lila replied. "They should be. The barrier is failing faster than expected. We probably have less time than anyone realizes." An hour later, Lila found herself in the station's main conference room surrounded by representatives from 6 different galactic powers. The meeting was tense and crowded. Everyone wanted to be close enough to study her, but no one wanted to be the first to make demands. General Brass from the Hegemony military forces was a large creature that looked like a walking tank with too many arms. His species believed in solving problems with superior firepower. "We need to understand her capabilities," he rumbled in a voice like distant thunder. "If she can interface with precursor technology, she could be an incredibly powerful weapon." Professor Quill from the Scientific Coalition was much smaller and more delicate. Her people resembled floating jellyfish, with translucent skin and glowing organs. "She is not a weapon," Quill said in musical tones. She is a breakthrough in our understanding of galactic history. She must be studied carefully and protected. Elder Sage from the spiritual order was the strangest of all. His species had evolved beyond physical form and existed as patterns of energy inside robotic shells. The ancient prophecies speak of awakened ones who will come when the long night approaches, he said in a voice that sounded like wind through metal. This human fulfills those prophecies exactly. Commander Vale tried to maintain order, but the discussion was becoming heated. Each faction wanted something different from Lila. The military wanted weapons. The scientists wanted data. The religious groups wanted confirmation of their beliefs. Lila listened to the arguments with growing frustration. These people were talking about her like she was not even in the room. Finally, she stood up. "Stop," she said quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at her. "You are all missing the point," Lila continued. "I am not a weapon or a research subject or a religious symbol. I am a warning system. And right. Now that system is telling you that we have a serious problem." She walked to the main display screen and placed her hand on the control panel. Without any training or instruction, she accessed the station's external sensors and projected an image of the galaxy's outer rim. "Look," she said. The display showed stars disappearing, not exploding or burning out, simply vanishing as if they had never existed. Dark patches were spreading through the outer spiral arms like ink drops in water. The void swarm has found us. The barrier is collapsing, and based on the rate of expansion, they will reach inhabited systems within 5 years. General Brass made a sound like metal grinding against metal. 5 years? Our intelligence report suggested we had decades. Your intelligence reports were wrong. The architects built their barrier to last millions of years, but it was always meant to be temporary. A delaying action while the genetic keys matured. Professor Quill's glowing organs pulsed with excitement. "You are saying humans are the solution to this crisis?" "Not just humans. The architects scattered genetic keys among several species, but humans are the primary carriers. We were designed to be coordinators, bridge builders between different kinds of minds." Elder Sage's robotic shell hummed with energy. "How many others like you exist?" Lila concentrated, accessing information that seemed to download directly into her consciousness. Approximately 3,000 humans across known space carry active genetic keys. Each one specializes in different aspects of precursor technology. Together, we can rebuild the defense network. "And if we cannot find these other humans in time?" Commander Vale asked. Lila looked around the room at all the worried faces staring at her. Representatives of species that had evolved over millions of years, built great civilizations, and conquered the distances between stars. All of them now depending on a small group of modified humans to save everything they had ever accomplished. Then the void swarm will consume this galaxy the same way they consumed the architect's home galaxy. Everything will be gone. Every world, every civilization, every living thing. Nothing will remain except empty space and the hunger for more. The room was quiet for a long time after that. Finally, General Brass spoke in a voice much softer than before. "What do you need from us?" Lila smiled. It was not her usual soft laugh, but something warmer and more hopeful. "I need you to do what your species do best. The hegemony builds and fights. The coalition discovers and learns. The order preserves and believes. Working together, you can give us the time and resources we need to wake up the others and activate the defense network." "And if we refuse to cooperate?" Professor Quill asked. "Then you will all die separately instead of living together. The choice is yours." As the representatives began discussing logistics and resources, Lila felt the knowledge in her DNA continuing to unfold. She was changing, becoming something more than human, but not less than human. The architects had designed their genetic keys well. They had made them strong enough to bear the weight of galactic survival, but flexible enough to adapt to whatever challenges they might face. The awakening had begun. Now came the hard part. The ancient precursor archive looked like a cathedral made of living crystal. Lila stood in the center of the vast chamber, her hands pressed against a control interface that had been dead for 3 million years. Around her, holographic displays showed star maps, weapon schematics, and battle reports from a war that most of the galaxy had forgotten. Dr. Holt watched from a safe distance as information flowed between Lila and the ancient machine. Her eyes had taken on a soft blue glow that matched the crystal formations around them. She was no longer just reading the archive. She was communing with it. "The Void Swarm is not a species," Lila said without taking her hands off the interface. "It is a force of nature, like gravity or entropy, but with purpose and hunger." The holographic displays changed to show images that made Dr. Holt's skin crawl. Dark shapes moving between stars, consuming planets like cosmic parasites. Entire solar systems withering and dying as something invisible drained them of energy and matter. "The architects fought them for 1,000 years, Lila continued. "Every weapon they created was absorbed and turned against them. Every defense was eventually overcome. The swarm learns from everything it devours." Commander Vale's voice crackled through the communication system. "Miss Cross, we have located 17 more humans with active genetic sequences. They are being transported here as quickly as possible." "Good. We need all of them." Dr. Holt stepped closer to the display showing the current galactic situation. The dark patches at the rim were spreading faster now, accelerating as they consumed more star systems. "How long do we actually have?" Lila was silent for a moment as she processed information from the archive. "Less than 2 years. The barrier is collapsing exponentially. Each system the swarm consumes weakens the remaining defenses. Can the barrier be repaired? No. It was always meant to be a temporary measure, but it can be replaced with something better." The holographic displays shifted to show a complex three-dimensional network spanning the entire galaxy. Lines of energy connected thousands of points, creating a web that covered every inhabited system. "The defense grid," Lila explained. "A permanent network powered by the combined technology of every species in the galaxy. Much stronger than the original barrier, but requiring constant cooperation to maintain." Dr. Holt studied the display with growing amazement. This would require integration of technologies from hundreds of different civilizations, most of whom do not even communicate with each other. That is why the architects designed humans to be coordinators. We can understand and integrate different types of thinking in ways that other species cannot. A new voice joined the conversation as Elder Sage materialized in the chamber. His energy form cast strange shadows on the crystal walls. "The other awakened humans are arriving. Some are having difficulty accepting their new nature." Lila nodded without looking away from the interface. "The awakening process is traumatic. Most humans go through their entire lives without accessing their precursor genetics. Sudden activation can be overwhelming. How can we help them? Patience and understanding. Each person has to come to terms with becoming something more than they were born to be." Through the station's viewing ports, they could see ships arriving from across human space. Each one carried people whose DNA had suddenly started producing impossible scanner results. Teachers, farmers, engineers, artists, and children. All of them confused and scared by abilities they did not understand. The first group of awakened humans gathered in the archive chamber 3 hours later. Lila looked around at their faces and saw her own confusion and fear reflected back at her. There were 12 people ranging in age from 16 to 67. All of them looked lost. "I know this is strange," Lila began. "Yesterday you were normal humans living normal lives. Today you can see patterns in quantum mechanics and understand alien languages you never studied." A middle-aged woman named Beth raised her hand tentatively. "I keep having dreams about machines. Huge machines floating in space. And I know how to build them even though I was a school teacher until this morning." "Those are not dreams," Lila replied gently. "Those are genetic memories. Instructions left by the architects for building components of the defense grid." A young man named David looked around the crystal chamber with obvious fear. "This is insane. I just want to go home and forget any of this happened." "I understand. But going home is not an option anymore. The Void Swarm is real and it is coming. We are the only thing standing between our galaxy and complete annihilation." An older woman named Ruth stepped forward. She had silver hair and kind eyes, but when she spoke, her voice carried absolute authority. "Show us what we need to do." Lila smiled with relief. Ruth was a natural leader, exactly the kind of person they would need for this project. "Touch the interface. Let the archive teach you." One by one, the awakened humans placed their hands on different control surfaces throughout the chamber. The ancient crystal came alive with patterns of light as 3 million years of precursor knowledge flowed into human minds. Beth gasped as schematics for massive space stations downloaded into her consciousness. David trembled as he absorbed information about quantum energy manipulation. Ruth stood perfectly still as she received coordination protocols for managing an entire galactic defense network. Outside the archive, the galaxy's major powers were struggling to accept the reality of their situation. General Brass had mobilized the hegemony's military forces, but weapons designed for fighting other species were useless against the Void Swarm. Professor Quill's research teams were analyzing precursor technology as fast as possible, but they lacked the intuitive understanding that the awakened humans possessed. The biggest challenge was convincing isolated species to participate in a joint defense effort. Many civilizations had been enemies for centuries. Others had never made contact with galactic society. A few actively distrusted any technology they had not developed themselves. That was where humanity's unique gift became most valuable. Over the following weeks, awakened humans traveled to dozens of different worlds. They served as translators not just of language but of entire ways of thinking. Beth worked with crystalline entities who communicated through harmonic resonance. David negotiated with machine intelligences that processed information in pure mathematics. Ruth coordinated with energy beings who existed partially outside normal space-time. Each species contributed something different to the defense grid. The crystalline entities provided power storage systems. The machine intelligences created processing networks. The energy beings established connection points between dimensions. But integration required more than just collecting components. The defense grid would only work if every participating species trusted the system and each other. That meant overcoming millions of years of mutual suspicion and fear. Lila found herself becoming the primary coordinator for the entire project. Her genetic programming included not just technical knowledge, but deep understanding of psychology and diplomacy. She could see patterns in group behavior that helped her predict and prevent conflicts before they escalated. Still, progress was slow and difficult. Time was running out. The Void Swarm had consumed 47 star systems and was accelerating toward the galaxy's more populated regions. Refugee ships were fleeing ahead of the expanding darkness, carrying reports of planets that simply ceased to exist. "We need more time," Ruth said during one of their coordination meetings. "The defense grid is incredibly complex. Even with precursor instructions, building it properly will take years." Lila studied the latest reports from the Galactic Rim. The pattern of swarm expansion was becoming clearer. They were not consuming systems randomly. They were targeting specific locations that weakened the remaining barrier most effectively. "They are adapting their strategy," she realized. "The swarm is learning about our defenses and optimizing their approach." Dr. Holt looked up from his analysis station. "How long until they reach core systems?" Lila accessed the tactical data through her enhanced consciousness. The answer made her blood run cold. 18 months, maybe less. The chamber fell silent. Even with awakened human coordinators and unprecedented cooperation between species, 18 months was not enough time to build a galactic defense network. "Then we need to change our approach," Ruth said calmly. "Instead of building the complete defense grid, we build the minimum viable network. Something that can stop the swarm long enough to finish the full construction." Lila nodded slowly. "A fighting retreat. Use partial grid components to slow their advance while we build stronger defenses behind them." "Can it work?" "Maybe, but it will require sacrifices. Some systems will have to be abandoned to buy time for others." The weight of that decision settled over everyone in the chamber. They were talking about deliberately allowing entire civilizations to be consumed by the Void Swarm. Billions of lives lost to save trillions more. "The architects faced the same choice," Lila said quietly. "They chose to sacrifice themselves to give future generations a chance to survive." Ruth placed a hand on Lila's shoulder. "Then we follow their example. We do whatever it takes to save our galaxy, no matter the cost to ourselves." As the awakened humans began planning their desperate defense strategy, none of them noticed the small changes happening to their DNA. The precursor genetics were still evolving, still adapting to meet the challenges ahead. Soon they would discover that humanity's role in this crisis was even more important than they realized. The first Void Swarm scouts reached the outer colonies exactly 14 months after Lila's DNA had confused. that simple medical scanner. She stood on the bridge of the newly constructed Command Station Alpha, watching through enhanced sensors as something impossible devoured the mining world of New Brisbane. The planet did not explode or burn. It simply faded away like a photograph left in sunlight, becoming transparent and then invisible. Where a world had existed moments before, there was now only empty space and a growing hunger that reached out toward the next system. Defensive Grid Station 7 is reporting full power, announced Beth from her position at the tactical display. She looked older than her years now, aged by the weight of coordinating weapons that could destroy star systems, all connections stable. Grid Station 12 is online, added David from the communications array. His natural fear had transformed into focused determination over the months of preparation. Species integration protocol is functioning normally. Ruth stood at the center of the command bridge, her silver hair now completely white from the stress of managing a galactic defense network. Miss Cross, what is the status of our awakened human coordinators? Lila closed her eyes and reached out through the quantum communication network that connected all the awakened humans across the galaxy. 3,000 minds touched hers briefly, each one managing a different aspect of the defense grid. The sensation was overwhelming and comforting at the same time. All stations report ready, she said. The partial grid covers 60% of inhabited space. It should be enough to slow the swarm's advance. Should be, Ruth repeated grimly. Let us hope that is sufficient. The Void Swarm scouts had been testing the outer defenses for 2 weeks now. Each attack taught them something new about the defense grid's capabilities. Each probe revealed weaknesses that had to be addressed quickly. What worried Lila most was how quickly the swarm adapted to their tactics. It was not just intelligent. It was rapidly becoming smarter than any individual species could match. That was why the architects had designed humans the way they did. Incoming transmission from the main swarm fleet, David announced. They are attempting to communicate. This was unexpected. The Void Swarm had never tried to talk to any of their previous victims. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on. Put it through, Ruth ordered. The main display filled with an image that hurt to look at directly, shifting patterns of darkness that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once. Defenders of this galaxy, you have built an impressive network, but you cannot stop what has already begun. Ruth stepped forward. We can try. You misunderstand our nature. We do not destroy. We preserve. Every civilization we consume becomes part of us. Their knowledge, their experiences, their essence continues forever within the collective. Lila felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the command center. You are offering us surrender. We are offering you transcendence. Join us willingly and your species will be honored within the whole. Resist and you will be consumed anyway, but with much greater suffering. The communication ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Well, Beth said after a moment. That was disturbing. It was also revealing, Lila replied. The swarm is trying to negotiate because they are not certain they can break our defenses quickly enough. Ruth nodded. They want to avoid a prolonged battle, which means our strategy is working. Over the next several hours, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Void Swarm was probing the defense grid at multiple points, testing for weaknesses. Each time they encountered resistance, they pulled back and tried a different approach. But they were learning. Each attack was more sophisticated than the last. We need to do something they cannot predict, Lila said during an emergency strategy meeting. Every defensive measure we take, they find a way around eventually. David looked up from his analysis station. What if we stopped being defensive? Explain. The swarm expects us to build walls and fight from behind them. What if instead we went on the attack? Beth shook her head. Our weapons are powerful, but the swarm has consumed hundreds of galaxies. They have seen every possible technology. Not every technology, Lila said slowly. They have never encountered anything like awakened human consciousness. Ruth raised an eyebrow. What are you suggesting? Lila walked to the main display and called up a tactical map of the galaxy. The swarm is a collective intelligence, but it thinks in predictable patterns because all its component parts were originally separate species. Each one contributes their own way of solving problems. So humans were designed to think in ways that bridge different types of consciousness. We can integrate multiple perspectives simultaneously. That makes us fundamentally unpredictable to a collective that assumes every intelligence works the same way. David caught on first. You want to use our coordinators as weapons. Not weapons. Something else entirely. Lila accessed her enhanced consciousness and reached out to the other awakened humans across the galaxy. But instead of just communicating with them, she invited them to link their minds directly through the defense grid's quantum network. The sensation was indescribable. 3,000 human minds suddenly became one collective intelligence, but unlike the Void Swarm, each individual retained their unique perspective. The result was not a single voice, but a symphony of consciousness that could think in thousands of different ways simultaneously. Through the linked network, Lila could perceive the Void Swarm's attack patterns with perfect clarity. She could see not just what they were doing, but why they were doing it and what they would do next. More importantly, she could see what they could not do. The Swarm's strength is also their weakness, she announced to the command bridge. They consume other intelligences, but they cannot truly understand consciousness that is fundamentally different from their own. What does that mean for our defense? Ruth asked. It means we do not fight them. We confuse them. Over the next 6 hours, the awakened humans implemented a strategy that no single species could have conceived. Instead of using the defense grid to block the Void Swarm's advance, they used it to create pockets of impossible spacetime. In some areas, they accelerated time so that the Swarm's slow, methodical approach became useless. In others, they created probability loops that made cause and effect unpredictable. They established zones where consciousness worked according to dream logic instead of rational thought. The Void Swarm had never encountered defenses like these. They had consumed species that manipulated matter and energy, but never species that could manipulate the basic nature of reality itself. For the first time in millions of years, the Swarm's advance stopped completely. They are confused, David reported with amazement. Their attack patterns are becoming erratic. More than confused, Lila replied. They are experiencing something they have never felt before, doubt. The standoff continued for 3 days. The Void Swarm probed the impossible defenses but could not understand how to counter them. Meanwhile, more awakened humans arrived from across the galaxy, each one adding their unique perspective to the collective defense network. Finally, the Swarm attempted one massive coordinated assault on the core systems. But the awakened humans were ready. Instead of fighting back, they opened doorways in spacetime that led to the original architect homeworld, the place where the Swarm had first learned to consume consciousness. Confronted with their own origin point, the Void Swarm experienced something unprecedented. They remembered what they had been before they became devourers. The effect was catastrophic to their collective identity. Billions of consumed consciousnesses suddenly recalled their original forms and began asserting their individual personalities. The unified Swarm intelligence fragmented into countless separate voices, all arguing with each other about what they should do next. They are withdrawing, Beth announced with relief. All Swarm forces are pulling back toward the galactic rim. Will they return? Ruth asked. Lila consulted the vast knowledge network of awakened human consciousness. Eventually, yes, but not for a very long time. We have given them something they need to process. The memory of individuality. It will take them centuries to decide whether they want to remain a collective or return to being separate species. Ruth smiled for the first time in months. And in the meantime? In the meantime, we complete the full defense grid. We establish permanent cooperation between all galactic species. And we prepare for whatever comes next. As the immediate crisis passed, Lila found herself standing alone on the observation deck of Command Station Alpha. Through the transparent metal, she could see ships from hundreds of different species working together to build a permanent galactic defense network. The same aliens who had been suspicious of each other just months ago were now sharing technology and resources freely. Dr. Holt joined her at the viewing window. His gray skin looked healthier now, and his huge black eyes held a warmth that had not been there before. How do you feel about your role in all this? He asked. Lila thought about the question carefully. She was no longer entirely human, but she was not less human either. The precursor genetics had not replaced her humanity. They had amplified it. I feel like I finally understand why that medical scanner confused me so much, she said with a soft laugh. It was not designed to read DNA that bridges the gap between what we were and what we could become. And what will humans become? Lila looked out at the busy construction sites and the ships moving between star systems. We will become what the architects always intended us to be. The species that helps other species work together, not because we are stronger or smarter than them, but because we can understand them all. Dr. Holt nodded thoughtfully. The galaxy will be very different now. Yes, Lila agreed. But different in a good way. For the first time in millions of years, every species in the galaxy has a common purpose: protection, cooperation, and growth. The Void Swarm gave us the greatest gift possible without meaning to. What gift is that? Lila smiled as she watched a hegemony warship working alongside a coalition research vessel to install new defense satellites. They taught us that we are stronger together than we ever could be apart. The medical scanner that had started this entire adventure now sat in a place of honor in the command station's museum. Its simple error message had changed the course of galactic history. Sometimes the most important discoveries begin with the smallest confusion, and sometimes when faced with the impossible, the best response is simply to laugh softly and see where the mystery leads.